Hello and welcome back to another episode of Wake Up Poverty Inspires Me, the podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time to tune in to my podcast, and I hope that the information I'm going to present you will help you in your life. It'll help you in your day-to-day activities, and it'll give you the motivation and the courage and the inspiration to believe that you can do anything you set your mind to. In this episode of my 10 Minutes of Wisdom, I want to talk about how do we get things done? How do we get things done? Well, I'm just going to use some examples of what I've done to get things done, how I've seen roadblocks and how I've overcame things. I'll start with something that was actually one of the biggest things I ever did, and that was writing my first book. This book didn't just, my first book, Wake Up Poverty Inspires Me, also the same name as the podcast, was written at a point in my life where I felt very defeated. I felt as if I was in a wall, in a place where I didn't see a way out. I was at a loss for words. It was a time in my life where I was raising my kids by myself. I was working a full-time job. I was struggling just to keep food on the table, to keep the light on, to keep the rent paid. I didn't have my house at the time. I remember there was one time it was so bad that I took all of the dry food outside of outside of my cabinets, and I put it into the refrigerator. And so my kids, when they would open the refrigerator, they were small. It would appear to be full. They didn't know any different. I'm sure they may have, but I was just trying to trick them and make them think that everything was just fine. But inside I was dying. I was hurting, and I needed to overcome that pain. And so I started writing. I just started writing. And I said, well, what can you write about? You don't even know anything. You're over here without nothing. You're raising your kids, but you're like barely fucking surviving. Like, what good are you going to give the world? To come and suffer like you? I said, just see where you come from. How did you get to this point? If you're all the way over here at this moment and you've made it this far, where most of your friends are dead or in jail, and you're right here, right now, and you're here for a reason. Do something. Be someone. I had this little intuition, this little voice that said, come on, Chris. But I didn't want to take action. The pain was too heavy. But I did. And I started writing about what I remembered. I went all the way to the beginning as far as I could think. And as I started to go, I started to find different forks in the road of my journey. I started discovering things about myself that were making me a better person. I didn't uncover some magical law. I studied the secret law of attraction. I started reading books. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I did everything I could to change my program. Here I am. This was in 2014. And between 2014 and 2023 to this day, I've had very little success with my books. I've had very little success with the whole process of marketing. But that didn't stop me. I'm going to tell you what else happened along the way. During all this time, I didn't stop at one book. I knew I had something to say, and I knew that my message could be powerful, so I just kept writing. I didn't market myself, because at the time I was just too into what I had to say. I thought that was more important, and I didn't really think about it. I was trying to get better myself, so the words I was sharing with people were helping me. Kind of selfish in a way, but it was necessary. It was necessary to overcome the hurdle. And I did it. I signed with a publishing company. Another lesson learned. And I published my first book. I came out $4,000 which I really didn't need to spend any money, but I didn't know any better. I felt great. I had all these promises about how my book was going to sell off the shelf and I was going to be this successful author. And then about 6 months later, or a year later, the company goes under for fraud. They were just ripping people off and taking their money. I think some of the owners went to jail. I don't know. At this point, I had 2 books invested with them, and I was working on a third, and I don't know anything, you know. So I do know enough that these are bad people, and if I'm going to do it, I need to do it a different way. So I got all my rights to my books, but now I had no books. I have manuscripts, once again, and no way to publish these books. So what are you to do? Find a way. Find a way. Once again, the hardships, the poverty, the things that had even drove me to write a book, got me to publish the book, and now I'm failing again because now the book's out of circulation. What am I going to do? Write another one. Do it again. Do it better. Do it on your own. So I just started running again. Here I go, running, but never finishing anything. I got my first book, second book, third book. Got them all published under myself as the publisher. I learned how to do it, and I was on fire. The next thing you know, I was throwing book out after book out after book out after book out. Website after website after book. When I say website, I mean I was trying to tailor make my promotions at some point, right? But at this point, I'm just putting out books. Putting out value and content. And here I am thinking, it'll be like a drug. The value, the content, when they read it, they'll gravitate to it and it'll sell itself. Well, it didn't. It went up more. I went from seeing 22-cent checks to $30 checks. But there I am measuring the amount in money as opposed to the amount of value that I was giving. So I started something else. Here I go again. So you got some valuable information to share with people. People aren't going to read your books. There will, but there's a billion books out there. Most people that watch your videos, they don't like them. I watch them. I was marketing myself a little bit on different social media networks. Still ain't moving the needle. I'll do a podcast. I'll speak. I'll help people. I'll tell them you don't need a lot of things to be started to be great. You can do with what you got with nothing. Let your passion drive you. This is where I wanted to go next. So this was the next thing I wanted to do. And so I did. And for a year I busted out 50, in 1 year, less than a year, I busted out over 50 podcast episodes, and my microphone broke. You know, the microphone was only $10, but I let that stop me for a year because nobody was listening to it anyway. Well, here I am, episode 59, 60. Determined to make another 50 so I can complete my 100 by the end of the year. Strategic goals. I learn. I watch my son. He has a YouTube channel, Legend of God 70, where he talks about little video games that he loves. Over 270 or somewhere around there videos already posted. He doesn't care that nobody looks at it or some people look. He doesn't care. He does it because it's what he loves to do. And if what you love to do fulfills your life, then you should be doing that thing. I mean, it's not rocket science. I knew I had a message to speak, so I wrote a book, make a podcast, do videos. For what am I doing it for? I often ask myself that. Why? Why not just live my life in these mindset and values and let other people live their life how they want? Well, I am. Nobody has to listen to this podcast. Nobody needs to take my advice. But sometimes, if I've gone down a certain road and I found little ways to navigate it a bit easier, I'd want to know if I went down again, and I'd want to tell somebody else to make it easier for them. The future is you guys, you young people. I'm talking teenagers, 20s. Young is a young at mind. 60, 80, 90, young at mind. Your body's going to do what your mind tells it. Be young and vibrant in your mind and in your heart, and give to others. And you really give to yourself, because you don't have to have a lot to get a lot. You just got to believe that you already are a lot. It wasn't 7 million plus sperm cells to the one egg. All the things you've gone through in your life to this point of listening to this podcast, that you would stop now. No way. Get up, get busy, get it done. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Wake Up Poverty Inspires Me. I want to keep it to my 10 minutes as usual. I'm a little bit over sometimes. But I could probably talk another 30 minutes. But I want it to be short and be sweet and to the point. And if you want something, it's already yours. Just in that wanting, don't put it outside of what already exists.